What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now Plus. I'm Alex, and in this video, I'm here to review the first 2 episodes of Halo Season 2. We're back. It really doesn't feel like all that much time has gone by. And look, we talked about Season 1. I did an episode-by-episode review of Season 1, and I really did not like it. So, I was going in, I gotta be honest, I was going in a little negative, thinking, hey, I will say, the actor who plays Master Chief, he was saying all the right things. I was very, very happy with some of the things he was saying, but you never know. Hollywood, they could just try to win you over with words, and when you actually see it, it might fall apart. He really basically talked down to Season 1, talking about the writing is better now. The writers, they literally got better writers than they had in Season 1. He said that. And I was like, okay, that's a little gutsy to even say things like that. So I was going into Season 2, yeah, a little bit like, well, how can it get any worse? Hopefully it can get a little bit better, but not really expecting, all that much. And I gotta say, and I'm trying to be cautious because they have, destroyed me in Season 1. I think they did a pretty good job. I think the first 2 episodes are pretty solid. They are not perfect. They are not without a couple of complaints that I'll go into in this video, but I think it's actually a pretty good foundation. And I will say, in terms of like theme and kind of grittiness and just the way things seem to be starting off, it feels like if you just continue it, you're gonna be okay. Now, I remember like the first episode of Season 1 being pretty darn good, at least the fight, and then it really, completely fell apart. So I feel better about it right now, 2 episodes in, than I did, I think, in Season 1, 2 episodes in. I honestly feel like I also kind of got used to some things, right? So, like, look, I'm never going to like the no mask thing, right? I really am not. I don't agree. The only thing he actually said in all the interviews leading into Season 2 that I didn't like was that he kept talking about you need to have the mask off in order to convey, emotion and what we're kind of going for in the show. And I just don't think that's true. I think you can get emotion from Master Chief and just from scenes and situations with the mask on. In fact, I actually think they did it in the first episode. The first episode, his mask is on quite often. It's a big battle. There's a lot of moments there, and he doesn't take it off in the midst of, the battle. And I actually think you can get some real energy from him with the mask on. So I actually think they proved almost themselves wrong. And then, yeah, he pretty much had the mask off for the entirety of, episode 2 and kind of the second half, let's say, of episode 1. So again, it wasn't perfect, but the mask thing actually, least of the first season's concerns. There were so many bigger problems with that. And I would say least of this season's concerns too. The biggest issues I would say I have so far are not really the mask at all. So let's go over a couple of weaknesses, and then we'll go into the positives, because again, honestly, I liked it more than I didn't like it. So one weakness I'd like to throw in is some of the visuals. Man, they are rough. You can kind of see it in the first fight. So, when they're fighting these elites and stuff, you can kind of tell like something's a little off, but if it looks overall pretty okay, pretty good. But then anytime that they're running, it couldn't look worse, in my opinion. I don't know why they would focus so much on them running. I mean, the Spartans, right? In fact, getting to the first battle in the first episode, there is a kind of a long running scene, or it keeps going back to it, and you see the terrain and you see their movement, and it looks so bad. And then in episode 2, the 4 of them are doing like a training exercise, and overall, the training exercise looks fine. In fact, one of them, Riz, right, she falls, and it feels like she freaking breaks her back, but nothing happens. And, all of that jazz happens, and it's like a waterfall and all that. That actually looks pretty good. Like, overall, fine. But, again, there's a little bit of running there. Even, like, in the mask, I feel like we've almost been conditioned by, like, Iron Man in terms of how it might look when you take a peek inside it. They focus so much on the eyes and kind of like just this part of the body. Like it's the camera is so in tight to like this part. It just, I feel like you could just show the whole face and almost like pretend like the mask isn't there, which is kind of what Iron Man, right? Like, he's in it. You can sometimes see like what he sees, but you see like Robert Downey Jr.'s full face, right? Whereas this is just, it's too close. But I would say visuals in that department, pretty weak. Overall looked pretty good. There was a variety of different shots. Like I said, like the waterfall kind of set piece itself looks pretty fine. There are several scenes of talking, so they're kind of in confined spaces, and I actually like the talking scenes. We'll talk about that in the positives, but they don't really have to stretch the visual department too far, because I'd say a good maybe 40, 45, 50% of the first 2 episodes is confined spaces and a lot of dialogue. And I thought that was okay, and that balanced it. But we'll see what happens if things kind of get large again, because I think they will get large, and I think that can be a good thing. And again, the fight itself was pretty good. Like it felt very almost like Halo Infinite. The beginning, the cutscene, the opening of Halo Infinite felt very much like that, only not with the same enemy, variety, right? Different kind of thing. So I would say that. And the only other weakness, I would say there's a couple, I feel like, scenes of almost forced lines. Hard to fully describe, I guess, what I mean, but because there is so much dialogue, I do feel like there was like an extra couple things like thrown in every so often. I'm trying to like rattle my brain. I don't think anybody said anything really like cringeworthy yet. There was plenty of that in the first season. The dialogue felt, and really, so maybe we can go into a little bit more positives now. The dialogue felt pretty like mature. Like it felt like it knew what it was doing. It felt a little bit like something you've maybe seen before. And I guess what I mean by that, so you have this new character, which is in Halo lore, in James Ackerson, and he's played by Joseph Morgan, who I actually think might be the most talented actor of the entire group. I think he's extremely, I know he's been in a lot of, I think, like Vampire Diaries and stuff like that. He's really good, really, really good in this. And number one, I think he adds a lot to it, because he's just got this kind of like under the radar kind of charisma about him. But there's a lot of dialogue, and there's sometimes with like him and Master Chief where maybe it goes on just a bit too long, like the conversation extends, but it feels really good, this back and forth. But I guess what I mean by maybe you've seen it before, I actually mean that in a good way, because it's this dynamic where like he's in charge, and Master Chief kind of has to follow along, but there's something like nefarious going on about him, right? So you kind of have to play it a little weird, and he's trying to build like this fake trust while going behind people's back. It's a literal situation that is like almost a classic like villain, but in kind of plain sight. And he's not necessarily a villain, but he kind of is, like this back and forth thing, right? I really like it. I appreciate that they, are going this route, but just generally the dialogue is so much better. And maybe, like I said earlier in the beginning, maybe I'm getting more used to it. Like Pablo Schreiber as Chief, right? Yeah, do I prefer I would not see his face as much? Yes, but it's not because like I hate the guy or anything. I actually think he's pretty good, and specifically in this season, like he's without Cortana, which actually that would be a negative I do have to bring up in a second. He's without Cortana. He's by himself. He is much more like kind of stone-faced. Like he's very to the point. He's very not aggressive, but I mean he's kind of lacking of empathy and emotion, all that stuff, which is kind of good. Now that Chief because I think there's more complexity to Chief, especially as the games keep going. But I feel like that's kind of what we need right now, is a Chief that has the helmet on and is a little bit just more kind of direct and more like he's just cool. He's just like a really like legendary kind of figure, and I think he can do it. And I think at times he does do it. And I think in this season overall so far, I think he pulls that off. And I am getting more comfortable just with the whole group. Like I remember not really liking Kai. So far, so good. Like I actually think Kai is maybe the second best of that Spartan, besides Chief. So I think there's something there. I think they kind of took a left turn when they should have took a right, in season 1. But overall, the returning cast, Soren, like all, I feel more comfortable with them and almost like willing to let them kind of story tell a little bit. But I think they do it with a little bit more maturity and a little bit more directness. There's a feeling of moving forward, and they establish things very quickly, right? Like the Covenant, is destroying basically planet by planet. But there's something more going on, and Chief knows it, but there's this idea that maybe he's not all that right in his mind, and Joseph Morgan's character doesn't really trust him, but maybe he's got his own kind of side things going on. And then Chief, they send out other groups to these planets, and they don't tell anybody, and they don't come back, and they just report them on standby, even though they're not actually back yet. There's just a lot of really strong moments, and with like a forward-pushing plot that I don't really think we got, in in the first one, first season, I should say. I do want to mention Cortana before I forget. So, like, Jen Taylor is always going to be a legend, right? So, like, the voice is always literally perfect. You actually couldn't do it better, right? Because if you got somebody else, it wouldn't be as good. But I don't know what they were doing with the visuals. So, like, not to spoil it, but also kind of spoil it. So, you see, I guess, a version of Cortana that James is talking to, and it looks terrible, like, worse. And here's the thing. Here's the issue. In season 1, leading in, we saw like screenshots, and then we saw Cortana in the show, and it, her look, just like the way she literally looks, is one of the worst parts I think about season 1. It's very, very bad. They heard that. They heard a lot of criticism. I actually do think so far they course corrected on some of it, and for whatever reason on her, they made it worse. So now there are theories that it's just like the version for each person. So he sees, maybe he sees her as it, but it's like she's personalized to look like that for him. And eventually, when she reconnects with Chief, which God, she better, then she'll look back to normal. The issue is normal was still not great. In fact, it was bad. It was bad, okay? But this is worse. So I can't believe I'm saying this, but I think we need to go back to what we had in season 1. And because we just can't have the situation we had in episode 2, here. So, well, yeah, again, is this show perfect? No, it's not, okay? Is it getting there? Yes, and I feel like I'm giving it a chance. I feel like hopefully this review is going to come out that way, because that's how I feel. I was not feeling good about this. And I honestly don't care either way. Like, I'm not doing it. I'm putting this on my second channel. They don't do legendary views. Like, you know what I mean? I wouldn't milk it either way. I do want the show to be good. I want it to, because I want good Halo content. If it's terrible, it's terrible. If it's good, it's good. I don't, like, viewership wise and all that stuff, so I'm not like putting on like a fake, persona. I'm happy. I'm truly happy, and I actually am kind of shocked, to be honest with you, that it's so far so good. So far much better than, the first 2 episodes of season 1. So I'm willing to, at this point, give it a chance. I'm willing to see it through. And they have it. They have it, but they had it in season 1 too. Like, it's really, I don't know, it's not that hard to do this. I really don't believe so. And they really didn't do it right with season 1. So hopefully you have something here. I think you have potentially, because of really some additions, like you have a lot of strong talent, because there was talent, here and there at least in season 1. You have all of them back. We're a little bit more familiar. We're a little bit more like understanding of like just letting them do it. And then you add, again, like specifically him, Joseph Morgan, you add some really talented people, and he's like right at the forefront. I think you can do it. Like, if he's going to be one of the central things that you're just always focused on, I don't think he can carry it, but I think he can massively, massively help it. So we'll see what happens, but I'm in so far. So we'll see about episode 3 next week. Every week we'll be doing a review. I'm happy to be back, and I'm actually more happy than I thought I would be to be doing these videos. So let me know what you think. Make sure, as always, you're subscribed to the channel, bell icon turned on, and I hope to see you all on the next one.